Best of r/entitled parents episode 73. This happened a while ago, when I was like 11/12, so please bear with me if some of the details are off. I was in my last year of primary school, which I think is like middle school for Americans, and because of two massive earthquakes that had hit my city a few years prior, our school was really small. Lots of people had moved away for safety reasons. This included the staff at our school, which meant that the school was understaffed and often had parents come in and help out in the special needs department, with the kids who had autism and other learning disabilities. One of these parents who came in was EP. She was only there for my last year of primary school, because her son was the year younger than me and only just entering the senior syndicate. Now her son, EK, was an asshole. Like a little terror. Nobody really liked him because he would just bully others and put them down, which is where this story starts. I can't exactly remember what happened to provoke the situation, but I remember being with my friend in the cloakroom at lunchtime. We were just getting our lunch boxes and were about to head out to find a seat, when EK comes over and starts yelling at us. I don't remember what about, but it was pretty nasty stuff. I tried to walk away, and he ended up insulting me, calling me ugly, fat, and wrinkly. Now as a 11/12-year-old girl, I was pretty upset by this and started to cry. I was going to tell a teacher, but in the end I just decided it wasn't worth it, and I sucked it up and carried on. Few hours later we were back in class and me and my friend were talking about having a sleepover that weekend, but I wouldn't be able to because I had altar serving on the Sunday. I went to a very Catholic school. EK, who was sitting at the same table, offered to take my place at altar serving as an apology for calling me names, so that I could have a sleepover with my friend. We were thrilled, and to be honest it was a really nice thing for him to do. Fast forward a few months, I'm sitting at my desk and EK says to me, I need you to cover my altar serving this weekend. Confused, I asked him why he wanted me to do it and he replied that I owed him for the time he did it for me. I told him that I didn't owe him anything and reminded him that he altar served for me to make up for calling me names. He didn't say anything back and I assumed that was it. I didn't owe him anything. The next day I'm outside waiting to go into class with my friends when EK's mother, EP, calls me over. Now remember, she's a teacher aide, so I thought she just wanted me to do a job for her. I walk over and I say, how can I help? And she pulls me down the stairs with her to the courtyard. I'm a bit confused but don't say anything because I'm only 11/12, so I fully trust this adult who's supposed to be like a teacher and a role model. We get to the bottom of the steps and the conversation goes as follows. EP, why the hell aren't you covering for my son on Sunday? Me, confused, because I don't have to. EP, yes you do. He covered for you a few weeks ago. You have to help him back. I'm really confused at this point, and quite frankly a bit terrified because this older woman is practically screaming at me about her son in the middle of school time. I decide to tell her about what her son did to me. The only reason EK covered for me was to apologize because he called me ugly, fat and wrinkly for no reason. EP, I heard absolutely nothing about this in the teacher's room. Stop lying, you brat. Now I'm on the verge of tears. I have no idea why she's yelling at me when I wasn't even at fault. I tried to tell her that I didn't see the point in telling a teacher, but she cut me off and told me that her son would never ever do anything like that and that I was lying to make her son look bad. She ended up storming away because I had to get back to class, but for the rest of the day I was absolutely paranoid that it was my fault and I couldn't stop shaking. When I got home my mum could clearly tell that something was wrong, but I was in such a state of fear that I told her nothing was wrong, and it wasn't until later on in the evening that I mustered up the courage to tell her. I was terrified of the fact that I had to tell my mum that I had been attacked by an adult whom I was supposed to trust, because I felt like it was my fault. I was afraid she'd scream at me too. My mum was mad alright, but not at me like I'd thought. She went on and on about how unprofessional it was for EP to pull me aside in school and attack me, an 11-year-old, when she should have spoken to her instead if she'd had an issue. My mum ended up going to the principal and completely losing her mind over it, which felt pretty good to be honest. The following Monday, after the day he needed me to cover for him, I walked into class and saw EK. He looked at me smugly, strutted over and said, "So did you cover for me yesterday?" And I just looked at him and said no, and my mum is going to the principal about the way your mum behaved, and she's complaining and probably going to get her fired. Watching the color drain from his face is probably one of the most satisfying moments of my entire life. Needless to say, EP wasn't at that school for much longer. The staff stated that if she treats a regular curriculum student like that out in the open, we hate to think what she does to her own students behind closed doors. A pretty good ending to a rough story for little me, haha. Thank you. Next. This is written on my phone, so sorry for the layout. Also, it's my first post. Please be kind. I used to work at a pharmacy a couple of years ago, and in my country you need your children's approval, a form to fill out and a copy of their ID if the child is over 16. Enter entitled mother. I dealt with her a couple of times earlier, and remember her pretty well. I've told her multiple times to get her child to fill out the form and bring it in, so she could continue to pick up her child's prescriptions. I'd let her off about 3 times, with my boss approval of course, and when she finally came into the pharmacy this day shit was about to go down. As she approached the counter I nicely greeted her and asked what I could help her with. Me: "Good day mom. What can I help you with today?" EM: "I need to pick up my child's prescription." Me: "Have you brought the form with you this time?" EM: "What form?" "It's my child. I can pick up whatever I want for them. I'm getting kind of tired at this point, after going through the same conversation multiple times." Me: "As I've explained earlier, when your child is over the age of 16, the child has to give you written permission and I need a copy of their ID. Do you have this with you?" She scoffs at me and start getting visibly upset and annoyed. EM: "It's my child. I don't need to fill out any type of form." I explain once again that I can't let her pick up the prescription, and that I've told her this multiple times. At this point she's fuming, starting to scream at me for holding back important medication. Me: "Mom, I'm sorry but there is nothing I can do. We've already been nice about it letting it slide the other times, and we can't do that anymore." She's staring at me so hard and I can barely react before she picks up a chewing gum box, hard plastic, and throws it right at me. I luckily moved quick enough and it flew past me. Me: "Ma'am, I would please like for you to leave before I call security." She swore at me and screamed that we'd lost a loyal customer. I was pretty shaken by the whole deal, and by the time she was out the door, I was crying in the back room. I have many weird stories from working at the pharmacy, but none got violent until this. I only worked there for a few more months before I got a job as a veterinarian assistant. Animals are so much better more than humans. Love my job now. Thank you. Next. So a little background and first of all I am on mobile, so cut me some slack anyway. So ever since I was a child I was forced to go to church with my family. I've always hated it and my mom didn't recognize that until I was 9. I am 15. So I hated it because I never got to choose why I wanted to go to church, and I think I've resented it for that reason. I also hated all the extremists that went to that church. I'm getting off track. Long story short, I hated church and not a lot of what the Bible said, which led me to Saintism. It's something that actually made sense to me. I also feel that it was a way of somewhat lashing out at my family for putting me through what felt like torture to me. Me F friend Sem crazy entitled mother. So me and F are at the mall just walking back to the food court from a little arcade store that has a bunch of old school arcade games and also air hockey and billiards. So we were walking back and I stopped in a bookstore to look for a copy of the Satanic Bible, seeing as my mom had found my last one and burnt it. So we stopped in and F went to the manga section. We're both pretty big weebs. So I stopped at the religious section and started looking. Sem, oh my, it's so good to see our youth looking for refuge with Jesus. Me, oh I am sorry, I am actually here looking for the Satanic Bible. Sem now raising her voice. Sem, how dare you. At this time F hears the conversation and makes his way over. F, mom, can you please keep it down and tell me what's happening? Sem, well, you're an employee, right? Get this boy out of here, he's ruining the name of God. F, mom, I am not an employee and my friend here, even though he's a Luciferian. If you don't know what that is, just look it up, it's easier that way. Sem cuts F off. Sem, I don't care what he is, and how can you be friends with a monster like him? Now I don't have a very good temper, so I easily blow up. Me, okay, listen here you fucking bitchy, don't give a shit what you think about me, just shut the fuck up and leave. Sem clearly shocked, left in a huff with her child. Thank you. Next. So, this story may not be as juicy as some of the stories in this sub, but it's a good one nonetheless. A little backstory. My mom, EM, and my dad divorced when I was pretty young and had shared custody of my brother and I. After finding a boyfriend a few hours away, EM wants to move there with him. I don't want to go since I want to finish high school with my friends. I'm in sophomore year. However, my brother, let's call him Rob, isn't doing great in school and decides he wants a change. He's in 5th or 6th grade. He moves there with her and I stay with my dad. EM isn't the happiest about this but doesn't give too much of a fuss. So fast forward a few years and Rob is now 17 and driving, paying for all his own bills for the vehicle. One weekend Rob decides to take the 2-hour drive and go have dinner with my dad. EM knows and doesn't have a problem with it. While Rob is at the restaurant with my dad, he gets a phone call from EM. Apparently EM locked her keys in the car and was furious at Rob for not being in town to let her use her spare key that Rob had, and that it was Rob's fault that she is going to have to call a locksmith. Completely bewildered Rob and my dad how this made any sense. She knew he was going to be out of town. It's not Rob's responsibility to stay nearby in case something happens. Anyways, nothing else really happened besides him getting chewed out again later when he got home. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you. Next. I've grown up in a family where my parents always encourage sharing, even if it sometimes means you don't want to. Background. My dad especially would always take food off me and my siblings' plates without compromise or asking, which would be annoying but I sealed with it. Fast forward to the 28th of January 2020. We are eating dinner at a restaurant and we were having a good time. Ordered, and my sister, 11, was telling stories about school. When the food came, my dad had a plate of onion rings that everyone was taking from, so I grabbed a small one, believing he'd be chill about it. I take a bite and he looks at me with that sort of confused and accusing face. Dad, what are you doing? Me, 13, eating food. Why? Dad, did you just take my onion ring without asking? We argued, and I claimed that mom and my sister had taken some, but he didn't care. I gave the onion back to him and had a quiet dinner for the rest of the night. About 2 hours later, my dad comes running upstairs while I was playing video games and yells at me to stop. Dad, what the fuck are you doing? Me, dude, I'm just playing games. Dad, I just got yelled at by your mother because I snapped at you and you took my onion ring. Me, fine. So basically, my mom was mad at my dad for yelling at me, and because he was being a hypocrite, and my dad grounded me. Thank you. Next. This happened in summer of 2018, and for once in Britain it wasn't cold, it was actually hot. IK, innocent kid ED, entitled Dickwad SG, security guard me, insert something funny here instead of saying it's me because everyone else does. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and if you couldn't tell already, I have tattoos. They're all on my arms. None of my tattoos are offensive. At the time I had 2, now 4. The first one being a half sleeve on my left arm, made up of roses, a dove, 4-leaf clover, sunburst, clouds and some wording. The second one being a tree, with the word family written into the middle and my family name in the roots of the tree. I'm perfectly fine with people asking about or to see my tattoos. I have them for a reason, and if people want to take a look then they're more than welcome to. IK stood behind me in a local store as we're waiting to pay for shopping. At this point I had no clue where his dad was. I think the dad went to get something while the kid kept his place in the queue. IK was curious and was close to me just taking a look. I didn't mind, he wasn't annoying me or anything. Out of nowhere I hear someone shout, IK, move away from that man, not knowing that he's talking about me and he's talking to IK. Before I knew it I felt a tap on my shoulder and turned around to see what they want, and of course it was ED. The conversation goes as follows. ED, you should cover those up in public. At first I thought he was talking about my scars. I've got a lot on my legs. Me, what? ED, those marks on your arms, the black stuff. Yes, literally called it black stuff. Me, you mean my tattoos? ED, yes. Me, why? ED, they're not appropriate for anyone to see. No one should have that on their body. At this point I got a little annoyed. Now if I had a naked person something offensive on my body or something that wouldn't have been appropriate for anyone, let alone a child, to see, then I would have covered them. I get people may have opinions about my tattoos, which is fair enough, but if you don't like them in general, keep it to yourself. While your opinion on them doesn't mean shit to me, it still is annoying. Me. Alright then. At this point I just turned away and waited to pay for my shopping. ED. Taps me again. Are you going to cover them? Me. No ED. Why? Me. Because I don't need to, nor should I have to. Again at this point I turn back around to wait. I'm trying to be patient and not tell him to fuck himself in front of his kid. At this point ED had walked off with IK and I thought that was the end of it. About a minute later he walked back with a big guy, very big guy in all black, with the word security written across his jacket. SG, excuse me sir, did you tell this gentleman to fuck off me? What? SG, that man over there claims you did, pointing towards ED. Me. No. ED, you told me to fuck off for no reason, isn't that right IK? At this point I felt really bad for IK. He was just trying to pretend not to be involved by examining some batteries on a shelf. ED, IK, get over here. At this point the security guard went over to ask other customers/staff if they heard anything. The man in front of me said I didn't say anything. At the same time the person that was behind ED at the time and now behind me had said the same thing and said that all I said was that I shouldn't have to cover my tattoos. ED, no. He told me to fuck off. Me. I really didn't. ED, yes you did. SG, so you're going to need to calm down or leave the store. ED, what? He's the one that told me to fuck off. This goes on for a couple more minutes. He's ranting and raving, making this claim before SG finally has to escort ED out of the store. I felt really bad for IK. He was just a curious little kid wondering about something, like most kids tbh, and his dad decides to be a complete asshole about it. I understand if it's for religious reasons or something like that, but I'm never gonna cover my tattoos for anyone for any reason. TLDR. Waiting in line at a store to pay, kid starts looking at my tattoos. Kid's father tells me to cover them. I refuse to. He tries to get security to throw me after I apparently told him to fuck off. He gets kicked out for causing a scene and annoying other customers by being an ass. Edit. For anyone asking about swearing in the store being illegal, it's not illegal, it's that the store I was in is kind of fancy with tight rules and security, and it tends to be the place where if someone is disturbing other customers they'll kick you out. They won't call the police unless someone is assaulted or breach of the peace happens. Thank you. Next. So I am born disabled, spastic diplegia cerebral palsy, and I joined a sport called hand cycling, where basically it's a bicycle but you cycle with your hands while laying down on the bike. During a 2016 mini sports carnival, the sports was having a competition and people could win medals, and I picked the handcycle with the best gear/speed since the sports mostly rely on the handcycle and not the athlete's strength. I was there first, so whatever. 10 minutes later, when everyone else arrived and I was first to come and picked my handcycle, this shitty auntie pulled me off so hard so that his grandson can get my handcycle. I was fucking pissed and was holding my tears so hard. I lost at last place and her grandson got first. During the end of the competition, I cried and my parents says fuck it and went back home in a taxi and console me about losing. That day was also the day I quit. I'm 14 now, so I hope to join either wheelchair basketball or wheelchair table tennis in the future. TLDR, shitty auntie made me give up on the shit sport.